We call the Leesburg City Commission meeting to order. We could all stand. Our prayer be led by the Honorable Jack Rogers, our gas department, followed by Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, we do thank you for this day that you've given us. We thank you for our life and for our health and for the many blessings you've given us. We thank you for this great city that we live in, for the employees, for our first responders, and for everybody that makes this place just a great place to work and a great place to live. Father, I ask you to give wisdom now in every decision that is made this evening. Let your Spirit come in and just inhabit each one of us and just help us to keep the citizens in mind as we make each decision and make good and wise decisions for those citizens. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Tonight we have no proclamations, no presentations. Tab 4 is our public comment. Well, this section reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or be scheduled for consideration at a future city commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, please. Are there any public comments tonight?
Good evening, wonderful mayor, commissioners, and citizens of Leesburg. I'm lay brother Stephen Gerard Sidlowski. My vacation address is 2928 Tangerine Court, Leesburg, Florida. For those of you who would like to know, my voting address is 1109 West 8th Street of Lorain, Ohio. I'm delighted to continue to report to you the diplomacy of life, the progress for the sanctity of life in the United States. Isn't it so appropriate that I do it right around Mother's Day, the interval between Mother's Day and Father's Day? Because, well, we all have wonderful mothers and fathers. And my mother made some pretty good cobblers, okay, just to let you know that. I'm happy to announce that Lubbock, Texas is the latest city for the sanctity of life. It has just voted, the citizens had just voted themselves in their own sanctuary city for the unborn. That means outlawing, and I don't like to say the A word, but I will spell it. They are outlawing ABORTION. However, I love to say fatherhood, motherhood, and childhood. That just has such a nice ringing to our ears. I've dropped off to all of you in the past what? I've dropped off to you a resolution out of Roswell, New Mexico. You don't even need the citizens to actually move in the direction of passing a resolution, and I hope you'll pray about initiating a resolution declaring Leesburg a pro-life sanctuary city, possibly even before Father's Day. I know you have many things on your plate that you have to juggle. I understand that, but please start praying about that possibility, and I hope one of the commissioners will actually take that up. One of the neat things is I also gave you a recipe for success, even for us citizens. We have to get some type of an effort, an interfaith effort of all the 20-plus churches in Leesburg. If you read the article on Lubbock, Texas, Sanctuary City, they were able to galvanize over 300 churches to vote that Prop A in. So I'm letting you know that I think some of the recipe for success clearly is that also. And wonderful Commissioner, gentlemen, how are you doing on your own efforts with Personhood Florida? Have you made any efforts? I gave each and every one of you a blank copy of the petition. I'm happy to announce that I've done at least 110 signatures myself. That's not nearly enough. I have to reprimand myself because I should have had well over 500. I hope you yourselves will start pushing forth Personhood Florida. Why? Because that's going to further help the opportunity for pro-life sanctuary cities in the state of Florida. Thank you very much. God bless you. Jesus loves us all.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other public comments tonight? Seeing no other public comment, we'll move to the consent agenda, tab 5. But routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commissioner staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. Pull the item from the consent agenda, vote on remaining items with one roll call vote, and discuss each item pulled by roll call. Are there any items tonight the commission would like to pull?
Yes, B1, C2.
B1 and C2. Any other items? Now we'll entertain a motion to accept the rest of the items.
Move to accept the remaining items.
Second. Been moved and properly second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Burry,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item B1 is a purchase request. Do we have a motion to accept the request?
I'll introduce us by title only.
Purchase request by Public Works Solid Waste for an air curtain burner using a General Services Administration, GSA, multiple award schedule, MAS, from Air Burners, Inc. for an amount of $135,211.03.
Have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Connell?
Yes, a couple questions. Is there any permitting requirements for this? And reading the memorandum, it looks like the company we're buying from almost like has a monopoly on this type of thing. Are they going to maintain it? What is the maintenance on it? And what is the cost for them to maintain it versus what it's saving us to buy this versus what we're doing now with it?
Commissioner, I don't have a direct number on a maintenance cost for it, but I can inform the commission this. And first, we spend about $50,000 a year on collection of debris. So when you put out your residential yard debris and all that, we pick it up, we take it to the old landfill, we dispose of it. Each year, we budget about 50 grand to get rid of that debris. And we do it one of two ways. Whichever, we float the market, whichever is cheapest, we either A, chip it, or B, another company comes in and burns it. So 50 grand a year is what we spend on that. And that doesn't keep us up to date, so we always have a big stack of stuff. So the plan that we think is best is, and it's a little bit of a copy from Fruitland Park, is to purchase the air curtain so that we can do our own. That cost obviously is the 138. If there's a market on that, I don't have a good feel for that, but feel very confident that you probably in about 3 years are going to have your money back. And then with the maintenance costs. As far as permitting goes, yes, a permit is required. We're optimistic that we will get one, as Fruitland Park has. However, we won't proceed forward with the purchase until we have the permit in hand. But we can't go for the permit until you all agree to make the purchase. And I think, and as far as maintenance and that kind of thing too, like I say, don't have a cost, but the company is providing maintenance to our facilities department so that they can get educated on what they need to do to maintain it. So I think pretty reasonably we'll have our money back, but A, and two, be able to keep up with the workload better.
Any idea, Al, what's the life of a piece of equipment like this?
What's your guess on that, Cliff? 20 years. 20 years.
Okay.
How long have they been around?
The
The-
company?
Yeah.
Do you know that one too?
I don't know right offhand, but it existed at least 25 years.
Okay, I just never had heard of such a contraption, but of course I don't know anything about disposing of of garbage like this. So, no. How long has Fruitland Park been doing it roughly? Do you know? 5 years, and they've been happy with that, I assume. Okay.
One last question. What is the fuel source on this?
It'll be diesel fuel.
Okay. So is it got a self-contained tank on it? Because I noticed on the memorandum it could be moved around.
It does. It's portable, which is why we like it, because we can take it where we get. The Fruitland Park one is stationary, and they piped it in, but we chose for the portable option.
Okay. And do we have the equipment to move it, or we would have to buy a truck to move it around?
Yeah, come on.
Cliff Kelsey, Public Works Director. Yes, sir. It's basically a roll-off container, and we have the trucks already that we use in solid waste for roll-offs, so it's compatible. That's why we're going with this brand, because that was the specifications.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Cliff, the other equipment that's needed to clean it up, the skid steer and stuff, we have all that too?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Any questions from the public? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item C2 is a resolution. Would someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce to be read by title only.
Thank you.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing and directing the mayor and city clerk to execute a third amendment to amend and restated ground lease between the City of Leesburg and Venetian Garden Site Holdings LLC for the purpose of ratifying and confirming previous agreements despite lack of 2 witnesses to signatures and providing an effective date.
Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Move to proper second. Commissioner Cornell?
I just had a quick question on this one. Is this going to change at all the deadlines we gave them to get it started and get it done?
No, it doesn't change any of that. In fact, it shows that they're doing what they say they're doing. The reason for this is Dad Boyd is selling or transferring his shares of the Venetian Isles Restaurant Corp. there, and the buyer they're bringing in thought there needed to be 2 witnesses on the agreement that's part of the sale, so that's it.
Okay, so no
They-
deadline
they didn't-
changes?
They didn't like our form.
Okay, okay.
Who's the new buyer, Al?
Fred, that guy out of Orlando.
I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
I've not seen any of that paperwork yet. There were people who were already involved, I believe. They're just buying him out, is
Okay.
what I'm understanding.
They
Oh.
told me his name.
Okay.
He's a very reputable restaurateur and investor from Orlando. I don't remember his name, but
Yeah,
both-
first he was already involved, so that means we were already kind of vetted a little bit, so, okay. That's what I was asking about. Thank you. Any other public comment? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bury,
Yes.
Commissioner Connell,
Yes.
Commissioner Roebuck,
Yes.
Mayor Christian.
Yes. Item 6B is the first reading of ordinance. Someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce as read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the mixed-use PUD planned unit development on approximately 640 plus-minus acres to extend the time frame of the development for a property generally located north of Poe Road at the intersection of County Road 44, west of Radio Road, and extending northwest to Haynes Creek, as legally described in Sections 3, 4, and 5, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
This is first reading. Are there any comments from the commission on this one?
I probably just have one question. I know it's first reading, but is there a reason for the extension, or?
Yeah, do you want to, I'll tackle the top stuff, and then if they drill down, Dan, you catch the details. And I think probably for Commissioner Bury and Connell, this is a new issue for you. Slowly, the Planning and Zoning Department, along with the commission, and frankly, I don't know if the commission realizes that we've done this, is we used to have a 48-month sunset provision in a PUD. So that set the clock for a subdivision to start building once they received approval. If they didn't start building, then they have to come back for approval. So we have either A, when they have come back, we have made that provision not sunset. So we've taken the 48 months, and when they've come back and we've renewed with no sunset provision, meaning they never have to come back again. Or we haven't put any provision in the PUD for sunset at all, and it's gone unspoken. There's probably about 7 subdivisions that have gone through this process. So at this stage, Orange Bend is now about ready to sunset. Dan is recommending this change for A couple of reasons. One, it just from one perspective of the planning spectrum, it gives finality to your zoning and land use maps. So when it's made, it's set, it's that forever, and there's no changing. Second, it also, in our experience, when we've had 3 or 4 different subdivisions that come back after they expire, we kind of go through all the same process again. We hear all the same arguments again, and we do the same thing again. So to kind of spare us from going through that process, Dan's recommending this. I won't speak for Commissioner Burry. I'm sure he'll chime in. There is another side to that equation too, and so that would be my staff comments. And I'm sure.
Yeah, I understand we probably put a 48-month clause in there because we want to encourage the development. And I have concerns that having no sunset on it, what incentive are we putting, or not incentive, but we're not encouraging as strongly the development to actually occur. I also wonder how the planning phase, if a development is maybe going to come or maybe not, or there's this thing hanging out there, how are we planning our water lines, or, you know, to get there if we don't know whether they're coming or not. And so I'm the new guy, I get that, but I think, you know, things like this need some kind of cap. Maybe 2 years wasn't a good idea, but, you know, maybe 5 years is a better idea. But I don't think a indefinite ability to build whenever they want is necessarily. And the other thing I was looking at, I really couldn't find a good example, but in those PUDs, there's all these lists of what you can do in the PUD. Well, you know, 10 years from now, there might be something that, you know, we might have flying cars, or, you know, I'm not, you know, that's a little far-fetched, but there could be different things that we didn't anticipate that now cannot go into that development, or, you know, I'm just not sure how all that would work.
And I kind of concur with Commissioner Burr. I don't think we give them an indefinite pass. I think, you know, I'm always been leery of developers who come and they say they're going to build, and, you know, 10 years later, they still haven't built. So I'm kind of leaning toward the thing, you know, give them an extension, but give them a time frame as to when they're going to do something. And then you may have to add some light to that, but I'm kind of leaning the same way.
This provision does not work as an incentive or a push or a restriction at all. In the 18 years I've been here, it has accomplished exactly 0. I understand the point that you're making, that it seems like we're saying you have to get this done within 48 months. But I can go back to Terra Oaks, which we heard 3 times, and it came out with 600 units all 3 times. We can talk about Lake Denham, that went up before the board 3 times, and Fern Drive, which is by Sunnyside. I think that was about 100 units. We've done that one twice. Nothing ever changes. I get the point and respectfully accept your comments, but it creates a serious problem for us in terms of predictability as a government for the surrounding property owners to not know what's going to happen there over the next, because it gives them you have 4 years and then you have to come back before the board. I think that from staff's perspective, and obviously you'll vote however you want to, but it creates a lot of staff time and time for people in the public, and including a lack of certainty for the developers, for both staff, the city commission, the developers, and the public to not know what's possible there. If the market changes, the development does change. We've seen that, and then they'll have to come back and rezone. So that's staff's position. Obviously, we'll do whatever you want to do on the vote, but I have not honestly seen this create a benefit of any sort over the years I've been here. The development community has not taken it as a, gosh, we got to get this done in 48 months. they know that they can come
But I
back.
think those other developments, Leesburg hadn't changed much around Chair Oaks, not really changed up Pembroke a little bit.
Yes, sir.
You go to Lake Denham, not much has changed at 27. But if you look at what's happening in Orange Bend and Silver Lake area, you get 500 more residents, and you come 7 years and say, I want to do 600 acres, they may have an issue with it. Or if 44 hadn't been expanded, couple car wrecks, couple fatalities, people may have a different whole perspective.
Sure.
And we're telling the city commission 10 years from now, you got to live with that, even though your neighborhood has changed. So I think for me, and I understand staff time, but I think a development comes to pay for us to hire some more people to deal with that. But I don't want to, for me, to handicap a community that may be growing, and you may have 600 new residents. Those other developments, Terre Oaks, where I live, I mean, we haven't had an influx of new residents. Lake Denham has, so nobody's going to come and scream about 5 years or 8 years ago because nothing really changed. So this one is kind of a little different because I think that if they don't build in 10 years, that whole neighborhood is going to be a different neighborhood. And 44, we've already heard how people have already complained about 44 water and 2-lane highway. So unless that expands 10 years from now, if this is not on the forefront of development on the back end, there may be some problems. So that would be my only concern about it.
Sure. Sorry about that. So we approve, when we approve a PUD and they wait, you know, say it was indefinite, they wait 6 years to develop. Do they have to go through the traffic at that time with the county, or is that actually at the time we approve it?
If they go through the yes, when you first do your PUD, you have to do the traffic, you have to do the environmental studies, you have to do all of that again. When they come back for an extension on this, we won't make them do that again.
No, I'm saying, say there's no extension. Say we approved a PUD in 2010, but it's still valid, just for the sake of argument.
Okay.
And they say, I want to build now. Do they have to do anything with the county for traffic
Yes.
or no?
Yes, you still have to go back at the point of development. You do it when you do your first PUD, and then you have to do it at the point of development as well.
Right.
Unless those are immediately consecutive, you still have to go
Yeah.
back and do it all again.
And so I certainly get the concerns, and I'm a little leery also about indefinite PUDs because the areas change, but I do think it's not quite as bad as we approve it and then things change and they don't have to change. They would have to mitigate the traffic impacts, for instance, in the Silver Lake area, because that's a really good example. That's why I asked, because I honestly didn't know. Is they would, if there's now 900 more houses, they may have to do a lot more traffic mitigation than they initially thought, because those have changed. So for me, I mean, I'd be comfortable as far as maybe like 10 years, because I don't want staff to be, unduly pushed on, but then to the point that Commissioner Burry made, in 10 years, we don't know where things are going to be. To me, that's kind of the farthest I can see out and say, okay, things are going to, I could make a decision today, and as long as the traffic stuff has to change, still be comfortable with it in 10 years. And that would probably, I don't know, would that take care of maybe 70, 80% of them?
I don't know that 10 years would make it any different from a standard zoning district, because you still have to do all the same. If it was a R1 zoning district for single family, you still have to do all the same studies.
What I
don't know
mean
that it
is
would
we
be a
approve,
help.
we approve 20 PUDs a year. How many of them don't get built in 10 years, right? There's a number that doesn't get built in 4 years, there's a number in 6 years. Maybe you could pull some of that information, because that would be helpful for me if I could say, okay, well, there's a year that I can pick that eliminates 80% of staff's wasted time by picking that year as opposed to some other year. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but since 2005, when a number of these were done in that time frame, we've been through 2 major recessions, and I'm not sure that that would be a good way to measure it. It is a way to measure it. Maybe we could do it that way, but we don't know what the next 10 years, 15 years will hold economically.
Right.
So those numbers could skew the past 10 years or so with recessions and so forth, could skew what we're looking at.
Certainly.
I just see it as make it similar to a standard zoning district in terms of it's there, it's locked in. If they want to change it, they'll have to come back anyway. So it'll save this commission a lot of hours listening to the same arguments 3 times over every 4 years.
Well, we won't be here. We termed out, so 10 years, we all will be gone.
I'm hearing from the commission, do you want us to move forward with this ordinance? Do you want us to amend it before it comes back to you with the suggestion of 10 and 5 years?
Dan, the traffic study and the environmental study, how long are those studies good for?
I believe it's not very long. It's something like 90 days. It's not a long time.
Okay,
So if they're consecutive in the zoning and then the building, that's fine, but once you go to do a zoning, you can do a phase one environmental, but once you go into the full development phase, you'll have to do a full environmental and a full traffic study rather than just a basic analysis.
So if they did a full environmental and a full traffic study, let's say next week, and they don't develop the project for 4 years, are those studies still good, or would they have to redo them?
They'd have to be redone.
Okay.
All right, so I guess, everybody okay to bring it back as is? You want staff to make some adjustments?
Staff's point is that nothing good has ever come out of this deadline, from our perspective.
Maybe you could get some data, would be helpful for me, of like how many have come up, what was the outcome, did anything change, what changed?
We'll do it.
Kind of knowing how we've treated in the past, I think would be helpful, for me at least.
I mean, my 2 cents on it would be, I understand where Dan's coming from, but, you know, if you approve something indefinitely or even a long span, 10 years, what have you, you're gonna have new people moving to that area, and therefore they don't have a say down the road of what's going in because it's already been approved. I don't know I would be in favor of an indefinite PUD approval because it's not taking into consideration of the new residents that may be moving in adjacent to that property.
Commissioner Gordon, you had something?
And I'm good with that. I mean, that's my sentiment also.
Okay. All right, any public comment before we turn to city manager? Yes, sir.
At least I got word, and I know we don't want to go forward and keep it at the same, Mayor, and the same from you.
Yeah, well, I'm good about 10 years, and I think,
10 years.
Ty, you waving your hand? Oh, Al, you can't, you got your microphone off? That's good information we need to hear.
Sure. So we'll amend it to 10 years and bring it back to you with some of the data?
I don't know I'd even be comfortable with 10 years. I think that's too far out.
Well, I think what Commissioner Roebuck said, bring some data back. We can kind of see, I know staff doesn't think it's going to change much or helpful, but I think we just bring some data back. We can decide 10, 4, and we can kind of knock it around a little bit.
Just as a point of information, we're talking about a specific PUD, but now we're talking about what we do with PUDs in general. So a decision made about them in general, does that affect, or
Yeah.
are we
We
going
do-
to approve, turn this up or down?
Actually, we
You know?
do need to bring this back.
Yeah, we need to do
So-
something with this and then maybe bring
So
a
it'd
separate
be on-
issue for going forward.
So we'll bring it back to you next month with some data, and then the extension is what we'll need to talk about.
With
whether it's
this?
48, indefinite, 10, whatever you decide.
And that would be
And
good.
now, now in that context, however you guys decide what we do with Orange Bend, my direction to Dan will be, this is how we're going to move forward on all PUDs in the
Correct.
future.
Correct.
That's fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
That-
I'm
we
good
got-
with that.
We got good direction, so it'll be back to you July meeting or next June?
The first in June, or you want this next?
No,
one in May?
it's regularly going to come back the
Oh,
second
in 2
June meeting?
weeks.
Okay, so it'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll get some
Okay.
data.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need a motion, Fred, to do all that, like tabling it or?
No, this is a first
Yeah, it's
reading,
first
so
reading.
it's
You're good.
fine.
Yeah, all right.
Item 6B2 is the ordinance. Is also, someone like to introduce it, please?
I'll introduce to be read by title only.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending Chapter 17, excuse me, Pensions and Retirement, Article 4, Police Officers Retirement Fund of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Leesburg, amending Section 1 definitions, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Any discussion on this one?
And maybe if Al could just give us a little update clarification on what we're
Okay,
talking about
so,
here.
yep, we have had an existing police pension fund for some time now. One of the items, though, in the collective bargaining agreement is the definition of pay. And there are numerous definitions of the definition of pay, but one of them talks about special pay, so special duty pay. And special duty pay would be items like you're doing a city event, you're doing Bike Fest, the 4th of July, whatever, or you're even doing a special duty that's not a city-related matter, like Walmart is doing their super Christmas, Thanksgiving shopping day thing, and they wanted a couple of police officers at midnight on Black Thursday, and Walmart pays the officer, but that pays the officer through the city. And we have defined in the collective bargaining agreement what special pay is eligible to be a pensionable pay, so that when you get that overtime check, is that part of your pension earnings or not? The way the city and the union has defined special pay that's eligible for pensionable benefits, we agree on, which has just been city. The actuary for all these years has been defining it basically that all special pay is pensionable. So when they do their actuarial report, the city's actually paying more into the fund because we're picking up the 7.5% for the employee contribution. And we've been doing this forever. So the actuary said, you guys got to fix that. So the city, myself, Chief, Melissa, got with union representatives. The union decided, no, they like the actuarial's interpretation of the definition. So they wanted that all those special duties would be pensionable. The difference, however, in the union's decision was, we don't want to retro pay for all those times where we got special pay, but we want it to be part of a pensionable benefit. Therefore, we want it to start July 1. The city's position should be, okay, well, I'm already paying it now, how the actuarial earnings. So now if I'm getting 7.5% from employees, it's going to help me out a little bit. I think I used a marginal, hardly noticeable benefit to the city. I think that was my wording in the cover letter. So in any case, our recommendation is go ahead, keep the actuarial happy, let special pay be defined that way, but then starting July 1, the members of the union will have to pay their 7.5% on what is a pensionable benefit. And then after this, we'll have to make an MOU with the CBA and the union to define special pay as suggested by the actuary. I tried to make that really simple.
Commissioner Robo, you have anything?
Yeah, so maybe I didn't quite follow there. Currently, I know that actuary is saying for the calculation that we have to contribute for special pay. However, are they earning pension on special pay?
This is the hitch. The actuary has been calculating it with that being a pensionable benefit.
When coming up with our contribution?
Without, yes.
But it's not actually going into their balances. It's impacting how much we have to make as a catch-up contribution.
Right. So now I'm going to get an extra 7.5% from the members, so my contribution should go down.
Well, your catch-up, but maybe not, because your catch-up contribution is just, that's like a fake number.
No, there is no catch-up.
But the actuarial contribution, I say, it's not a catch-up contribution, right? The actuarial contribution, that's a fake number because the pension is not 100% funded. So it's a number they make us put in every year. But their balances aren't going up. Now those balances are going to go up, and we're going to be putting in the same amount of money, but we're not. Right now, that money is going to get us closer to 100% because it's not actually going to their pension. The actuary is saying we need to pay it, but it's not going to their pension. That's what I'm understanding, because they don't think it qualifies for their pension. It's not in the collective bargaining agreement.
No, let me make sure we got this right. The actuary is saying that all special duty pay is pensionable.
But the CBA does not.
Correct.
And so it's not going into the balances. The actuary is looking at it when doing the calculation at the end of the year to see how much we contribute to the pension. And if there's a variance between what he's saying and what the CBA says, it just makes it so that we fund the pension further. I want to get some clarification on this. I know this is first reading.
It is first reading. I will verify that, but I
Yeah.
don't think that's correct.
Oh,
Because because the actuary says you guys need to pay 12%.
Yep.
That's our contribution. But that's 12% is including, say, $20,000 of salary that was a non-pensionable item that was getting counted as a pensionable item. So I'm paying my 12%, but the employees aren't helping me with that because they didn't pay their 7.5.
And what you're saying makes sense, but the
But
way it
you
was
want me to-
initially
you want
worded
me to
makes me
verify
question
it.
that.
I
So,
will,
yeah.
for second reading, I'll verify it.
Okay, thank you.
Could you also find out how much or what percent that special, what are we talking about? What is,
I will get you that
what's
number.
the-
It's de minimis.
pay this much, and if this is what we're,
It's de minimis.
fiddling with.
Any public comment? So Dan was a math major somewhere in college about pensions. Next is non-routine items. We have none. No information report. Financial reports as of March 2021. Anything city manager sticks out? Nothing. City attorney items.
Have a brief update on the Value Host Inn, or whatever they call the Holiday Inn these days. We heard today from the broker who has it up for sale, and he says that Ms. Cifuentes, who holds title to it, we can't serve her because she lives out of the country. And she wasn't aware of the foreclosure because we obviously haven't caught her yet. But the broker says that now that she's found out about it, she has authorized the broker to do whatever it takes to catch things up. And when we looked at the violations, it appears all they have cited is mowing and cleanup violations on the exterior. So we're going to check with code enforcement and verify that. But they should have it cleaned up so it at least looks better, and they're willing to pay all the fines and costs that the city's incurred up to date. So that'll be a $20-something thousand fine paid, and the grass gets mowed, and then it'll still sit there.
Fred, I guess my question is, maybe Chief can come and talk about code enforcement, but the conditions of the building, the unsafe conditions, none of that rise to a level of a code infraction, just the grass cutting? Because
It probably does, but it was not part of the case that led to the imposition of this fine. So from the legal standpoint of the foreclosure, all we can do is foreclose the fine that was levied.
right.
If they cure those violations and pay that fine, then on the record, they're clear. And if the city wants to go back and inspect the buildings and cite the building code and housing code violations or whatever's out there, then they're free to do that and start more cases.
Right.
And then we'd pick it up again. But right now, the status of it is lawn mowing, and that's all we've got to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're harder on residents than we are on a commercial property on a main thoroughfare in our city. And this is not our first time interacting with this particular piece of property. Nothing against the owner, because we've done it before with previous owners. I just think if we're gonna have a code enforcement that's gonna sit here for 2 years and look in the disarray that it's been, that we have to go more than just $100 on mowing the grass. I mean, that's minimal for $1 million property that sits on the main road. I mean, people are living there. You got trash everywhere. You got the condition of the building looks unsafe and it's unsightly. I just think we got to do a better job. $20,000 over 2 years. We've seen houses that have more than $20,000. and that's a residential house. So I just think we have to do a better job if we're going to really clean up the corridors by our city. It doesn't do us any good to bury lines and do intersections. We're going to have a building that looks in this condition and made empty promise to the city. I mean, we've had all kind of promises. They're going to remodel, they're going to do this, and nothing happens. So, you know, I just want to go on the record to say whatever we have to do, if we have to put the code enforcement supervisor or the chief walk the property with the building official to find out what we can do to bring this property into compliance.
It'll take the building officials' involvement to get into the building aspects of it.
You know, don't we have, we mentioned the people living there and stuff, don't we have that ordinance, like a nuisance type?
Yes, it's predicated on a certain number of arrests for a certain specified group of offenses over a period of time. And as far as I'm aware, that property hasn't risen to that level on those offenses. It's primarily gambling and prostitution, that sort of thing. If it's vagrants living in it, that's not part of the nuisance statute.
Got it, thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, thank you, City Attorney. City Manager.
I have nothing for you this evening.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Connell?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Roebuck?
Well, I normally have to wait all the way till budget time to talk about pensions, so thanks for bringing that up tonight, made my night.
Commissioner Bury?
I attended the Institute for Elected Officials this weekend on behalf of the city, and learned a lot about city government. And what I learned most that I pulled away from it is that the city of Leesburg is doing a heck of a lot better than all the other guys' cities and the problems that I heard. So I think we can pat ourselves on the back a little bit. We're doing a good job.
Mayor Christian?
A couple things. I did have opportunity to attend the Rails of Trail, Lake County, Friends of Lake County presented here in Leesburg. Commissioner Burr, Commissioner Peterson was there, of course. Three queens were there, Joni, Maria, and Sandy. They were all there. But Leesburg is poised to with the trails. I don't know how the commission or budget will impact, but I think it was a good presentation. We talked about comparing Leesburg, Claremont, Winter Garden, their downtowns and their trails. And I was sharing this with my wife. I thought it was, you know, Leesburg has a great, unique opportunity. And I told somebody, if you put your blinders on and look at Leesburg and not just isolate downtown, but if you connect downtown, Pine Street, Venetian Gardens, Pat Thomas Baseball Field, and Ski Beach, I think we have something that other communities don't have, where we can not just mix trails, but culture and some innovative aquatic centers. I think we have an opportunity to do something very grand here in Lake County with our trails and connecting not just our neighborhoods, but becoming a regional player in social activity. So I just want the commission to kind of think about that whole, you know, Pat Thomas, and on Pat Thomas, Al, I mean, we probably need to paint it because it does look kind of like an eyesore. So I don't know if it's in the budget. We can get some volunteers from the public works to paint it, but I think that can be tied in. We can somehow tie these different components together. I think this part of Leesburg will grow tremendously. I also had a chance to go to Treadwell Elementary School, so we were talking about Orange being for a moment, and the fact that I know some of the residents came in the Silver Lake discussion about how Treadway was overcrowded, and I talked to the principal. She took me to so many classes. One thing I didn't know, she didn't know that some of the portables, they say portable, they've been there for like 20 years. They have no covered walkways, so the parents are complaining about the kids have to walk in the rain when it rains. And so I started thinking about, you know, until people really start moving to our city and go to our public schools, the school board's not going to enhance our schools, whether it be Beverly Shores, Fruitland Park, which Leesburg students go there, Leesburg Elementary, and now Treadway, which used to be the premier elementary school here in Leesburg. So I want us to consider that when we were talking about approving developments, that, you know, the district, because of what's going on in the south end of the county and now Mount Dora, those schools are going to get priority over our schools. So that's something we need to as well mention and think about when we're approving developments, to ask the school board that, hey, Leesburg is now becoming a big tax base, so let's improve our school facilities, because I think that the children will come. They're going to be in our school system in the next 2 or 3 years. So that's something that's wanted to keep on our radar. That's all I have for tonight. Motion to adjourn. Have a great night, everybody.